In the shadowed corners of Eldridge Hollow, a quaint town nestled between fog-shrouded mountains and whispering forests, lived a young archivist named Ilara Voss. She was the kind of woman who found solace in forgotten tomes and faded maps. Her days spent cataloging relics in the town's ancient library. Ilara had always been sensitive to the undercurrents of the world, the way a room could hum with unspoken secrets or how a glance could carry the weight of storms. But nothing prepared her for the arrival of Lucian Crow, an enigmatic wanderer who appeared one autumn evening, his coat dusted with the scent of distant rains and his eyes holding the flicker of embers. Lucian wasn't like the ordinary folk of Eldridge Hollow. He burned brighter, not with the warm glow of the sun, but with the intensity that warped the air around him, twisting moods like vines around a trellis. Some called it charisma, a magnetic pull that drew people in. Others whispered of something older, darker, a force that echoed from forgotten myths, where mortals were touched by shadows beyond the veil. Ilara first met him at the Harvest Festival, where laughter usually flowed like cider, but his presence shifted everything. Conversations faltered, eyes lingered too long, and the night air tasted metallic, like blood on the tongue. If you've ever crossed paths with someone who summons tempests with a mere look, who magnetizes turmoil as if it were drawn to their very soul, or who alters those around them in inexplicable ways, then this tale is for you. It's a chronicle of shadows and signs, woven from the threads of Ilara's unraveling world. Before we delve deeper, if you're drawn to tales that peel back the layers of the uncanny, consider following this path further. Subscribe to the Whispers of the Hollow, and signal your presence by etching 2x22 in the echoes below, invoking ancient wards and reminding kindred spirits they're not wandering alone. Now, let us tread carefully through the 10 omens that revealed Lucian as a shadow-touched harbinger, what some might call a demon chosen one, and the lessons Ilara gleaned from the chaos that ensued. 1. They siphon vitality rather than bestow it. In the beginning, Ilara mistook Lucian's allure for genuine warmth. He arrived at the library seeking rare volumes on forgotten lore, his voice a velvet murmur that coaxed stories from her lips. Their conversations stretched late into the night, filled with tales of lost civilizations and hidden powers. At first, Ilara felt invigorated, her mind buzzing with ideas she hadn't entertained in years. But as weeks passed, a subtle erosion set in. After each encounter, she returned home drained, her once vibrant sketches of ancient runes now smudged and incomplete. Her laughter, usually bright and infectious, turned hollow, echoing like wind through empty halls. It wasn't overt malice. Lucian was charming, his anecdotes laced with wit that made her feel seen. Yet he had a way of steering every dialogue toward his own burdens, the endless roads he'd traveled, the betrayals he'd endured. He demanded empathy like a parched traveler at a well, pulling her emotional reserves until she had none left for herself. Friends noticed the change. Ilara snapped at minor inconveniences, her patience frayed like old parchment. One evening, after a particularly intense discussion about cursed artifacts, she collapsed into bed, her dreams haunted by a void that swallowed light. The pattern repeated. Initial excitement faded into exhaustion, yet she found herself drawn back, boundaries blurring. It was as if Lucian's presence created a gravitational pull, siphoning her essence without a word of intent. Ilara learned the hard way that this wasn't mere fatigue, it was a systematic depletion. To counter it, she began limiting their meetings to daylight hours, grounding herself with walks in the forest, where the rustle of leaves replenished what he unwittingly took. She journaled her moods, noting the correlation, and sought solace in old friends who reminded her of her own strength. Recognition was her shield. Once named, the drain lost its stealth. 2. Their aura ignites polarities in others. Lucian's influence extended beyond Ilara, rippling through Eldridge Hollow like a stone skipped across a still pond. At the town's monthly council gatherings, where neighbors discussed mundane matters like crop yields and festival plans, his arrival transformed the room. What began as civil discourse fractured into extremes. Some villagers hung on his every word, their admiration bordering on reverence, while others bristled, voices rising in uncharacteristic ire. Take Mayor Harlan, a steady man known for his even temper. In Lucian's presence, Harlan's latent ambitions surfaced, turning him into a fervent advocate for bold changes, proposing risky ventures that echoed Lucian's tales of adventure. Conversely, the baker, Mira, who harbored quiet insecurities from a troubled past, erupted in defensiveness, accusing Lucian of stirring unnecessary unrest over trivial comments. The air crackled with tension, alliances shifting like sand dunes, and the once cohesive community splintered into factions. Ilara observed this from the sidelines, her archivist's eye cataloging the patterns. Lucian's stories acted as catalysts, amplifying hidden fissures, wounds of envy, fear, or unfulfilled desires. Admirers orbited him like moths to flame, offering loyalty that verged on blind devotion. Detractors, provoked into conflict, kept the chaos alive, entangling everyone in his web. It was a dual-edged blade, dependency for the devoted, resistance for the wary, both fueling his centrality. To navigate this, Ilara anchored herself in neutrality. She refused to mediate the storms, instead retreating to her library sanctuary, where solitude preserved her equilibrium. She whispered affirmations under her breath, reminding herself that polarization was his tool, not her burden. When the atmosphere grew too volatile, she excused herself, preserving her energy for genuine connections rather than reactive turmoil. 3. They dwell comfortably in the abyss. Lucian spoke of darkness as if it were an old friend. While Ilara's research delved into historical tragedies, plagues, wars, and betrayals, he navigated such topics with an eerie serenity, his eyes lighting up where others might flinch. During a stormy night in the library, as thunder rattled the windows, he recounted tales of ancient pacts with shadowy entities, describing torment and taboo with the casualness of discussing weather. At first, Ilara appreciated his candor. It felt like empathy, a shared understanding of life's underbelly. He reframed cruelty as inevitable evolution, exploitation as a forge for strength. Pain is the true teacher, he'd say, his voice soothing yet insistent. But as their discussions deepened, she noticed how he normalized the abnormal, suggesting that manipulation was merely strategic wisdom or that emotional scars were badges of authenticity. This comfort eroded her boundaries. She found herself questioning her own morals, overlooking red flags in the name of enlightenment. Lucian's ease with the macabre wasn't just knowledge. It was an appetite feeding on the charged energy of exposed vulnerabilities. He cataloged secrets without remorse, using them to weave narratives that excused harm. Vigilance became Ilara's ally. She scrutinized his words. Did his acceptance of darkness include accountability, or did it veil complicity? When she pushed back, demanding examples of healing rather than harm, his responses grew evasive. She fortified her resolve with rituals, lighting candles to symbolize clarity, surrounding herself with symbols of light. Compassion without consequence was a trap. She chose discernment over delusion. 4. Coincidences orbit them like omens. Synchronicities wove themselves around Lucian with uncanny frequency. Ilara first noticed it when, after mentioning a rare herb from her herbalist grandmother's journal, a villager arrived the next day bearing the exact plant, claiming a sudden urge to visit. Numbers repeated. 13 appeared on clocks, pages, and even the spines of books he touched. Unrelated events aligned. 2 old acquaintances from his past wandered into town simultaneously, their stories validating his enigmatic history. These clusters felt magical at first, like the universe conspiring in his favor. Ilara interpreted them as signs of destiny, drawing her closer. But doubt crept in when the coincidences always bolstered his narratives. A lost artifact resurfaced just as he predicted, or a storm cleared precisely when he declared it would. It pressured her into trust, isolating her from skepticism. To discern truth from manipulation, Ilara kept a ledger, recording each instance with detached precision. Patterns emerged, not random wonders, but selectively framed events that elevated Lucian. She consulted the town's elder sage, who warned of illusions crafted by those who bend fate. Grounded in evidence, she resisted the allure, viewing synchronicities as life's poetry rather than his proof of supremacy. 5. They extract confessions like hidden treasures. Lucian had a gift for unlocking hearts. In quiet moments, Ilara found herself revealing buried fears, her loneliness after her parents' disappearance, doubts about her purpose. His gaze promised sanctuary, his nods encouragement. Villagers confided in him too. The blacksmith admitted embezzlement, the seamstress her forbidden affair. The intimacy felt bonding, but power imbalances grew. Lucian's knowledge became leverage, subtle hints in conversations that swayed opinions or extracted favors. Ilara felt unmoored after sharing, her vulnerabilities potentially weaponized. She tested boundaries with minor revelations, observing his reciprocity. When he gossiped or manipulated, red flags waved. Ilara reclaimed control by confiding only in proven allies, tracking action. Proven allies, tracking actions over words. Trust, she learned, was earned through deeds, not elicited intimacy. 6. Their wake is strewn with ruins. Investigating Lucian's past, Ilara uncovered a trail of devastation. Former companions spoke of shattered bonds. A merchant in a neighboring town described a partnership dissolved in accusations, a lover left broken-hearted amid scandals. Jobs ended abruptly, communities fractured post his departure. Excuses flowed from Lucian, misunderstandings, jealous foes, but patterns persisted. No accountability, only victimhood narratives. Ilara weighed this heavily, seeking independent verifies. Protecting herself meant prioritizing patterns over persuasion, enforcing distance to break the cycle. 7. They twist ethics with eloquent webs. Lucian's arguments were symphonies of logic, reframing harm as philosophy. Boundaries are illusions, he'd argue, justifying intrusions as paths to freedom. Ilara swayed at first, soon demanded outcomes. Who suffers? What follows? Consistency revealed self-interest. She countered with concrete queries, evaluating deeds over dazzle. Rhetoric as a veil for exploitation became her warning. 8. They wield confusion as a weapon. Lucian thrived in ambiguity, shifting stories, vague promises. Ilara's questions met deflections, fatiguing her resolve. She insisted on clarity, written notes, direct answers. Refusals exposed intent. She demanded specificity as armor. 9. Instincts and innocence rebel against them. Animals shunned Lucian. Dogs growled, birds fled. Children wailed in his shadow. Sensitives like the herbalist reported chills. Ilara heeded these, limiting contact when signals converged. 10. Their freedom demands your surrender. Lucian promised transcendence, but at the cost of Ilara's core, doubting friends, yielding judgment. She examined the toll. Isolation, eroded values. True liberation empowered, his version enslaved. She rejected it, reclaiming her center. In the end, Ilara confronted the shadows, banishing Lucian from her life. Eldridge Hollow healed, its air lighter. If this tale resonates, share it with those in need. Etch 222 below for wards against the dark. Stay vigilant, for power unchecked invites peril. If you seek a guide to wards or an expanded chronicle, speak, and I'll weave it anew.